Welcome back to FOSS Structures of Life. My name is Ashley McKenzie, and I'm going to be going over Investigation 4, Meet the Land Snail. Now again, land snails are not mailed to Massachusetts schools, along with many other states for reasons of invasive species. They eat out what's supposed to be here, they multiply rapidly, and they're not something that we want around. So, well, some people might. Anyways, 8 to 10 class sessions. Again, they're not provided for you. This investigation is typically skipped in BPS. However, if you have a schoolyard like mine, we have lots of land snails. So sometimes I do this in place of best beetles, or I do best beetles in place of this. I flip-flop it around. So I'm including this video just in case you want to investigate the land snails rather than doing best beetles. You'll find they're the same exact content, just different animals. For part 1, you're going to first want to have those land snails ahead of time collected. Make sure you can find them first. You're going to need the empty containers, a spray bottle of water, cups to put 2 snails in, carrots or apples, whatever you want to feed it that day. Tell students not to pull the snail off the cup. If you pull it off the cup, you can injure it. So you want to slide it to the edge of the cup until it comes off the edge gradually. This lesson's going to be revisited over the next couple of weeks. I basically frame it as if students finish their work early, okay, you can go to the snails and record your observations of the snails for today. It's kind of an extra thing when you finish your work. The student learning outcomes for this entire investigation is that students will be able to maintain a land snail habitat. They're going to compare observations of a land snail to that of a crawfish, and they're going to monitor and record observations over time. Part 2, comparing the crawfish and the snail. So for this, you're going to want the crawfish paper that students recorded observations on. They're going to need to record their observations of a land snail by answering the questions on the observation sheet. Make sure you go around and keep them on task. Look at those key questions in the teacher folio. Ask them as you're walking around. Ask them about the structures. Well, how do you think the snail's foot helps it? How do the snail's antennas help them? What do the antennae do for them? What does the shell do? So you want to ask these key questions for students. On the second class session is where the students will compare the 2 animals in a Venn diagram. How they're the same goes in the middle, how they're different goes on the outside. Just go over how to use that Venn diagram. Those students should know this information by now. There's an embedded assessment opportunity at the end of part 2. This is response sheet Meet the Snail. So I have students do this by themselves, and it's a tool that I use kind of like a quiz. I see where students are in their learning. I address any misconceptions that may be given before moving on to part 3. For part 3, this is what students get excited about. You're going to need to prepare a lot ahead of time, though. It's called the snail pull. Snails are going to be hard at work for this class. You're going to have the snails pulling washers in a cup. So the snails are going to have a small piece of string duct taped to the back of their shell. You're going to need to do this before the students arrive in class. Start the students off by saying, can snails pull their own weight? See what students have to say. Walk them through the investigation. You can complete it together as a class, but what I suggest doing is just show the students how to set it up and then let them investigate in their groups. So each group gets one snail to work with, but one backup snail just in case the first one's a dud. If the snail's not moving, give it a little spray of water, see if it will move then. Otherwise, we want to remind students that we're not going to hurt the snails by adding weight onto them, and have fun. Make sure they're careful with the snails and respect that they are living animals. Part 4, choosing your own investigation. So this is the lengthy investigation in this unit. It takes 4 to 6 class sessions. You can shorten this by giving the students the majority of the work as homework. So you have 1 class session when you set up the project planning sheet in class. So you introduce the investigation, introduce the options that students have to do. They fill in the project planning sheet for class 1. The rest they take home and they work at home. Give them 2 weeks, 1 week, however long you need to do, and then you come back and each student will present, and this will be your second class session. The students will present their 3-minute presentation, 1 minute for questions, and then the next student is up. Sometimes I do have to skip over this part though for time constraints. You may need to supply some materials for the students, such as a snail or a crawfish, depending on whatever they're doing, maybe even a germinated seed.